Hello, my creative crew. How's it going? It's Arit here. In today's Mind Thrive episode, we're going to be talking about how to get over creative blocks. As artists, we all go through this, right? We sit down to try and work on our project, whatever it might be, whether it's a new portrait, a new painting, a new song that we're creating. Even as entrepreneurs in our business, we're always creating, whether it's a new product, service, right? There are so many things to think about, and we sometimes psych ourselves out too much that we just can't get it done. What I want to tell you right off the bat is that you can get over it at your will. You have the power to say when or not you can create, and you have the power to call upon inspiration whenever you sit down to create. Now, how do you overcome that? How do you get into the habit of calling upon this inspiration? You need to train yourself to get into the habit of creating. I've been there, guys. I totally know what it's like to go through these creative blocks. I mean, we have 2 full-time YouTube channels that we're doing. We have this, our business Essetino Artist YouTube channel, where we have to create 4 to 5 videos every week to be released on a channel. I also have my music channel, which I'll include the link down in the description below, but I have my music channel where I create 3 to 4 videos every single day, and I have to create music. I'm creating lyrics to music sometimes. I'm creating covers and arranging songs, and it's all about creating, right? And I have to do this on a consistent weekly basis. So I've experienced those creative blocks before, absolutely. But I have to push through them. I have to, because I have a publishing schedule. And so what I did was get into the habit of creating, to get into the habit of when you sit down to work, this is what you're going to accomplish. And so each time you sit down to do that, your thoughts will already start combining into getting that work done. Every time we say we're going to do something, so every time we say, okay, we're going to paint this picture, but we're stuck, right? Every time we say we're going to paint something or create a new song or create a new project, and every time we don't get it done, we are actually strengthening a habit of failure. That is insane. Who wants to strengthen a habit of failure? So the more you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, the more you're strengthening this habit of failure. What we need to do is to change this paradigm. We need to get into the habit of creating, to get into the habit of success, to get into the habit of producing. And it has nothing to do with the muse. You know, in history, tons of artists and everything would always talk about this muse that would whisper in their ear and give them inspiration to paint that next masterpiece or to get that next project done. That muse is actually you. You are your own muse. If you're feeling uninspired, here are some things that you can do. Number 1, experiment with different mediums. So if you're a painter and you typically use watercolor, try something completely different. Go with acrylic or go with, multimedia. If you're a singer, a musician, and you typically sing certain types of songs, try something completely different. Go out of your comfort zone. When we try new things and experiment with different things, we're actually taking risks. And that risk gives you the knowledge. New knowledge is learned and inspiration in order to bring that into what you want to create. Number 2, take inspiration from other artists, right? There will always be someone who you look up to, who you follow in your own line of work, in your industry. Flip through their work, flip through their portfolio, and see what specifically about that piece of art or that product or that project do you love? And ask yourself that question. What do I love about this and why? And maybe you might find a certain element in that inspires you, and you can bring that into your own work. Just to give you an example, I was listening to a song on the radio that other day and I absolutely loved it. I can't even remember the name of what it was called, but I loved it so much. And what I do remember, and this is what I took out of it, was the way the lyrics were structured. The lyrics were structured in a way that each line, the last word of each line was the first word of the next line. And so when that singer sang the song, it was so cool. It sounded really cool. So I took that element. I was inspired by that. and I wrote it down in my notebook. And I might use that piece of inspiration that I captured for my new project. Number 3, when you are having a major creative block, just take a step back and meditate for a bit. Now, if you don't meditate already, then you might think this is weird and it's not your thing. Then it might not work for you. And I highly recommend you try some of the other things that I'm talking about in this video. But if you have tried it, if you do meditate, do that. Because meditating allows you to just breathe, first of all, and it allows you to connect with yourself. And creating is all about connecting with ourselves and bringing that out. Meditating is also great because when you get into a creative block, you sometimes get really stressed out and negative thoughts start to pour in about, oh, why am I having this negative block and why is this happening to me? And then other stuff will be attracted to those thoughts as a result, like, oh, am I good enough? And I really want this to be perfect. Am I capable of doing that? It's a spiral, right? You want to cut that right off the bat before it even begins. So meditating allows you to step out of that mindset, come back, connect with yourself, and then when you're ready, come back to work. Number 4, try creating without limitations. Now, sometimes we have creative blocks, not all the time, but sometimes some of us have creative blocks because we're perfectionists. Right? As artists, we want to create the best possible, every piece of art that we want to create we want it to be a masterpiece. We want it to be perfect. And so we build a standard that we become afraid of that prevents us from doing our work. Because we're scared that whatever we're going to start working on it's not going to live up to that standard that we have in our mind. We're kind of really sick in that way, aren't we? We're just creating fear out of nowhere. So what I mean by create without limitations is if you're a writer, just write. Start writing without thinking. Make it a draft. Tell yourself, this isn't the final piece. I'm just going to write without even thinking, without giving it much thought, see what comes out, let the pen do the work. And then I'm going to come back and take a look and see what I can use. When you start to get too much into your head, your work is affected, right? You want it to flow. You want to get into the habit of when you sit down to work, you're just in flow all the time. You might need to do this several times in order to produce the work that you are proud of, but that's okay because you are getting into the habit of creating and you are getting rid of those blocks that we find ourselves in so many times. So try to create without that judgment, without thinking about whether it's good enough or whether it's worthy or anything like that, and see what comes out. And number 5, focus on something concrete. So if you are having a creative block, try to think of a theme, for example. What's a theme that really speaks to you? What are you loving right now about your industry? What have you seen that has really inspired you? Think of a theme and see how you can express that theme in your best way. So take these 5 things that I just talked about, see which one speaks most to you and implement it. You know, I've provided you with a few things here, but I don't want you to be bombarded and try and implement everything at once. Just take 1 or 2 pieces that have spoken to you most, and next time you have a creative block, or if you're having one right now, and that's why you're watching this video, give it a try and let me know how it goes. I also highly recommend reading The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. If you haven't already, this is a great, great book where he goes into detail about why creative blocks happen and how to get rid of them. And just as I've said here, he talks a lot about how there is no muse, there is no waiting for inspiration to come to you. You have to make it a habit to sit down and create. And he specifically talks about it from a writing standpoint because he is an author, but this book applies to any artist, any creative entrepreneur. So I highly recommend reading it, and I'm going to include a link in the description below to get the book on Amazon if you're interested. So guys, that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If so, let me know by giving us a like, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. You can also share this video with your friends as well. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Back from the dead.